439 items of lost property at a Staffordshire theme park include a spring onion.
Police in Newfoundland have arrested a man for trying to break into prison.
1,300 Swiss carpenters have set a new world clapping record.
And headline of the week from the Torquay Herald: Painter Man offers reward after speed bump stolen.
That's the world this evening from No Such Thing as the News.
Another episode of No Such Thing as the News, coming to you from up the creek in Greenwich, London. My name is Dan Schreiber, and I am sitting here with Anna Czynski, Andrew Hunter-Murray, and James Harkin. Now, each week we'll be presenting to you the most interesting stories we found in the news of the last 7 days. And in no particular order, here we go. Starting with you, Andrew Hunter-Murray.
My fact is that the first time the British Cabinet approved plans for a third runway at Heathrow, the check-in desk was still a row of tents. There it is.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, when was that?
It was 1946, and
46.
And it was literally as it opened as a civilian airfield. So it was 46. It had 2 runways to start off, and immediately they said, "Oh, well, we'll need a third one of these at some point." And everyone said, "Oh, that's a very good idea. Yes, let's do that." And they've kind of been having that discussion since then.
Wow. So the decision was meant to happen this week, but it has been put off for 1 more week. So I guess if 70 years so far, 1 more week's not going to make that much difference.
Well, it sounds like it's next week, but actually there's another subcommittee who look into it next week, and then within a week of that, they hold a Commons vote. But that vote is only to see what the Commons thinks of it, because then they have to have a public consultation, and then they have to have something called a national policy statement. So the whole thing could take easily up to 2 years.
If Trump gets in, we'll probably all be living in tents then anyway, won't we?
They're quite nice tents, though.
They're very nice
They're
tents.
like glamping.
Yeah, and they're very, very plush on the inside. They had all sorts of chintzy sofas and bowls of flowers everywhere.
So it actually sounds significantly better than check-in now.
So vote Trump. It's the third busiest airport in the world, so it obviously makes sense that would happen. I was reading that basically they have 4 invisible roundabouts above the airport.
What?
Yeah, so because so many planes are landing, they don't have time to facilitate landing them all if they're on a direct route. So they have 4 spaces in the air, they're called stacks. And it's basically just a giant invisible roundabout where if you've ever been in a plane and obviously you just spend 20 minutes circling around, they're all circling 4 distinct air roundabouts. Yeah.
Is it still give way to the left, or how does it work?
You said moving to the left, didn't you? Scientists in Queensland, at the University of Queensland at the moment, are using budgies to stop plane crashes.
Okay. Giant budgies.
No. The normal-sized budgies.
Are they using them as those bats to wave planes?
So what they've done is they noticed that if you get a load of budgies in kind of a small area, they don't fly into each other very much. Right. And they thought, why do they not fly into each other? So they filmed a group of budgies. When these budgies kind of come near each other, they always turn right. And so if each one of them is always turning right, then they always miss each other.
Well,
hold on, sorry, can I just check? We hadn't worked out that in order to not crash into each other, we had to have a system whereby we knew which way to turn when we saw an oncoming plane. We had to wait for the budgies to tell us.
Yeah.
Did you see in the news this week there was that plane that had to land on 3 wheels? No. So this was, it was a British Airways plane, actually, and it was leaving London to go to Chicago, and then I think the pilots realised that their wheel undercarriage was locked, and so they wouldn't be able to get their wheels out properly and land properly. So they turned around. Actually, it landed on 3 wheels rather than 5. And this is quite common. So it's called a belly landing if there's a malfunction with the plane, which this was, and it's called a gear-up landing if the pilot just completely forgets to put the wheels down.
Is it that he forgets forgets or that something goes wrong?
No, it's not. It's always human error. So the vast majority of times when the wheels don't go down are human error.
No.
It's true, they do. There's a book called Aviation Management, and according to this book, there's an old flying adage, which is, there are two types of pilot, those that have landed gear up and those that will.
Wow. One thing that they have noticed is that budgies always put their feet down before they land, which is really interesting. Heathrow was almost called Swinton Field. After the Air Minister, Lord Swinton, because people worried that people from other countries wouldn't be able to pronounce Heathrow. Whereas Swinton Fields...
I really like that the first ever takeoff and landing at Heathrow was in 1925, way before the airport was actually there. And it was a pilot called Norman Macmillan, and he basically needed somewhere to land because his plane was in trouble. So he saw this patch in Hounslow, he went down, he landed, and then later on he took off and he thought, oh, this is a really nice flat bit. And that's how Heathrow eventually became Heathrow.
And before they used it as an airport, they used it for ploughing competitions, I think.
Yeah.
And there was actually an awkward period of crossover time-wise. It was a real disaster.
I was following a ploughing competition in America just recently.
What do you mean, following?
Like in the news.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
okay.
I read it was happening. Very exciting.
Is it?
Some great ploughers out there. It's an annual thing. It's a worldwide thing.
Did it make you wonder why they'd ever bothered making an airport when ploughing...
Why do you need to go anywhere? Stay here.
But some people have got to get to the ploughing competition, haven't they?
There's another bit of news about airports that has appeared in the last couple of weeks, which I think it's worth everyone knowing, which is that in Iraq, the transport minister recently did a conference in which to announce the fact that they were constructing a new airport. And during the conference, he announced a very important historical fact, which is that Iraq actually had the oldest airport ever in the world. This is during his actual presentation. Perhaps many of the Diqa Governorate do not know that the first airport to be built on planet Earth 5,000 years ago was built here in Diqa. When the Sumerians settled here, they knew full well that the atmosphere was suitable for flying to outer space. It was from here that the Sumerian spaceships took off towards the other planets. That is the Iraqi transport ministry. We need to move on very, very shortly. Does anyone have anything before we do?
This is just another thing from earlier on this year, actually, about aeroplanes. But you know Iron Maiden, the band Iron Maiden, heavy metal band. So they got a new aeroplane this year. And in fact, their lead singer, Bruce Dickinson, is also a pilot. So he flies all their planes when they go places. And they had to alter their travel plans this year because they were supposed to touch down in Dortmund. And it turned out that the metal out of which their plane was built was too heavy for it to land in the airport, and they had to redirect the flight and get a connecting bus. Amazing.
That's fantastic. Okay, we're going to have to move on to our second fact of the show, and that is James Harkin.
Okay, my fact this week is that this week's leaked Hilary Clinton speeches only exist because her staff were sending them to each other saying, what are we going to do if these get leaked?
So that's in an actual email that they...
Yeah, so basically she did these speeches to Wall Street, and it's a bit controversial because a lot of Democrats don't think she should be so close to Wall Street, and it's a bit embarrassing for her. And they didn't want anyone to see these things, but obviously people were sending them to each other saying, what are we going to do? And then her campaign chairman, John Podesta, had his emails leaked, and which meant that we saw all of the conversations about these speeches. So that's how we get to know about them.
Yeah.
We should say that the Clinton team haven't confirmed or denied that these leaks are real.
Right.
Tim Kaine, who's Hillary's running mate, said he doesn't give any credence to any of the dumped documents because he doesn't even know if they're accurate.
So just on how the election in general is going, there's just been a bit of polling out today which has found that almost 1 in 4 18 to 35-year-olds would prefer a giant meteor to either of the candidates. not to one of them, to either.
It is one of those weird elections where you could literally put anyone... You could put Nick Clegg against these two. and he would win, right? There is only one way that I can see that Donald Trump could win this election, and that is if they hold it in Russia. Because Wynne Gallup did a poll of 45 countries in the world, which represents 75% of the world's population, and asked them all, would you vote for Hillary or would you vote for Trump? And in Russia, Trump has a 23% lead. In America, Hillary has a 7% lead, and everywhere else in the world, she has a higher lead than she does in America. Wow. So she has a 9% lead in China, a 49% lead in the UK, an 80% lead in Portugal. 80%. So Trump gets 5% in Portugal against her 85%, and then some don't knows as well.
What?
They all went for the meteor.
I'll tell you one place he has got a lead, though. Trump does have a lead among robots. What? There's been an academic study of the first debate and the reaction to it online, and it found that Trump got 4 times as many tweets from bots on Twitter than Clinton. But the way they measure if you're a bot on Twitter is if you tweet more than 50 times a day, you're probably a robot. Also, bots tend to follow many more accounts than they are followed by in turn, a sign that they do not have real friends.
We're going to be some really depressed people listening to this description of robots. So just on Clinton, there's obviously this scandal about the fact that she had emails on a private server, and I read an article this week that said Clinton was unaware of the requirement in 2012 that she had to turn over her emails when she left office, and she said that might be due to a concussion that she had in 2012. So she fainted at home, she had a stomach bug, and she hit her head. She was quite sick for a while, and that's probably why she had trouble remembering stuff that was said to her in meetings. But the interesting thing about this is she had to wear a special pair of glasses for a while, and I didn't know these were a thing, but they're called Fresnel glasses. So you see on her left eye there, that's not normal glasses. That's what's called a Fresnel lens.
She's a robot. It's a Trump voting robot.
Are Fresnel not there in lighthouses, are they?
Exactly. So, in fact, that is the original Fresnel lens. Oh. It was originally meant for a lighthouse. What it does is it bends the light at different extents, depending on where the little ridges are that you can see, and that causes a lighthouse to be able to project light much further, but it also corrects double vision.
Sorry,
who
the hell is that?
That's her.
So that was the poster girl for the Fresnel lenses in the 1930s.
Maybe she's born with it. Maybe it's the Fresnel.
Anyway, isn't that cool? So she had these glasses
cool.
to correct her double vision for ages.
So this fact is obviously about WikiLeaks, and Julian Assange has actually been in the news quite a lot this week. Firstly, because Pamela Anderson went to visit him, and then a few hours later, in the middle of that night, suddenly there was this tweet sent out from WikiLeaks saying that the internet link has been intentionally severed by a state party. We've activated the appropriate contingency plans.
That does sound like they're having a party and they've thought, what shall we do? Let's just cut off his internet.
The conspiracy theory going around on the internet is that Pamela Anderson actually went in as a government agent and poisoned him.
You'd pick someone inconspicuous, wouldn't you? Like one of the most famous women in the world.
Yeah.
In the 90s.
In the 90s. What?
I was reading into Julian Assange's time at the Ecuadorian embassy, and he's in a very small section of the building, and I've discovered he actually runs 2 accounts. He runs the WikiLeaks account, and then this is his other account. It's called Embassy Cat. And it was a cat that was given to him. It's interested in counter-prevalence, and supposedly he tweets daily from this account.
Yeah.
The Embassy
You said
Cat.
he lives in a small room. He lives in the ladies' toilets.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he had a room which was much bigger, and then he decided he couldn't really sleep because it was near Harrods loading bay. And also, whenever the police changed shifts, it always woke him up. And so he found the quietest place in the whole building, and it was the ladies' toilets. And they ripped out the toilets and the sinks and everything like that and put a bed in there.
One thing I found out that he has is that he has a treadmill, which was donated to him by Ken Loach, the director, who wanted to make sure he got exercise. He says that he does 4 to 5 miles a day on that treadmill, which is a lot, and he got it in December of 2012. So I calculated how many miles he's actually run inside the Ecuadorian embassy. He's run between 5,600 miles and 7,000 miles, right? So I thought, OK, how far is that actually if you were running in a straight line? So what I worked out
It's
is...
the same distance.
Right. But it's incredibly far to run, even if you take the minimum. That would mean that he's run the equivalent miles that if he started at the London embassy, he could have run all the way by now to Ecuador. That's how far he has run, in theory, in that one room in the Ecuadorian embassy. We are halfway through the show, and it's time to look at the stories that you've sent in to us via emails and social media. And we're going to start with you, Andy.
OK, this was sent in by Laura Con-Student Loan on Twitter. It's from The Times. And it's that police are looking for 2 female pensioners suspected of stealing a 6-foot-high portrait of the actor Steve McQueen from an Irish hotel with the aid of a Zimmer frame. Sadly, they found it was too big to fit into their car, and it was discovered with slight damage outside a nearby restaurant.
James, what do you got?
OK, mine came from Matthew Lowe on Twitter, and it is that a group of crows in Hull have turned violent and started attacking pigeons due to the closure of their favourite branch of McDonald's.
Finally, Anna, what have you got?
This is from Dan Johansson on Twitter, and it comes from the Leicester Mercury, and it's that Leicester man has admitted stealing 13 blocks of cheese worth £39 from a supermarket. He said he was not sure at the time how much cheese he had taken or what he would have done with it.
OK, it is time to move on to fact number 3, and that is my fact. My fact this week is that this week scientists have announced that they have finally worked out why the sky goes dark at night.
Is it because the sun's not there?
No, you would think that, right? So
that is why it goes dark.
But it's not.
We'll test my theory.
So 200 years ago, there was a German astronomer. His name was Heinrich Olbers, and he had this thought, which is that if we live in a universe with an infinite number of stars, how come at night, if it's completely coated with light from the stars, are we not just in permanent daylight? And so many theories were put forward about this. It was called Olbers Paradox. And a lot of people thought that one of the reasons that he might have got it wrong about the infinite star idea is that actually we're not coated, as it is, with stars at the moment. But very recently, a research team in Nottingham has found a whole new batch of galaxies. I spoke to the guy who was part of the research team. We spoke on Skype. Here's a picture of him. Professor Christopher Consolis, and basically this is a byproduct of a major discovery, which is there are way more galaxies in the universe than we thought, and they're in the spots that plug the holes in the night sky where there was no light. Therefore, we are completely coated in light, so it completely ruins that theory. Now, it reverts to another theory then, which is that all the gas in the universe absorbs light, but that's the reason we have dark skies at night.
Yeah, that's true. It's partly that the light could be absorbed by the gas or by dust. It's partly by something called redshift, which means as they go further away, they appear more red, and they could go into the infrared part of the spectrum that we can't see. And also because the universe is expanding, some of the stars will be further away, so the light won't have reached us yet. But basically, it's because the sun's not there.
Yeah.
We do get sometimes quite interesting light at night. There was a photo that was taken just this week, and I'd not heard of this before, but it's a moonbow. I don't know if you've heard of a moonbow. It's a rainbow at night. This is the photo here. That's nighttime.
Very cool.
Yeah.
You get fog bows as well.
Fog bows?
Yeah, where the light refracts off moisture particles in the air. I mean, same as rain, really. It's just a different kind of... There is one more development in space this week, which isn't really in space, but it is so it's a new theoretical entity in space. It's a new nation which has been founded. It's called Asgardia. So there's a Russian scientist has launched this as a theoretical nation that is meant to create peace in space and stop human conflict on Earth. spreading to space, and you can sign up to become a citizen via the website. And I did this, so I am now a citizen of Asgardia, and I can tell you, it's pretty easy. You just need your email address and your bank details for some reason.
I did this as well.
I did as well.
Yeah.
Oh!
Anna?
I haven't done it, so I guess I'm a foreigner. I just dread the Asgardiac sit that's to come.
Do you know, but less than a week after this thing launched, it has more citizens than Barbados, which is pretty good. Yeah, it's got more than 400,000 people signed up.
So one thing in space this week is they've got some taikonauts in space, haven't they?
Oh yeah, the Chinese have just sent up 2 taikonauts. Very exciting. I saw a really great video of the launch that they did, and the Chinese taikonauts do something fantastic just on the count of 2 before they go up. I'm going to show you a video here, and this is of the astronauts as they're sitting inside with a 5 countdown going on within the shuttle. So here we go. It is... That's 4, 3. Hello. Just a little salute. You'd think, keep your hands on the wheels at 2.
I think
And suddenly it's like, no hands!
So they're going up to the Chinese space station. They're going to have another space station, which is a bit like the ISS, but it's going to be 10 times better because it's newer. One thing they're going to have is a robotic grappling arm. But the Pentagon have voiced concerns that China may be testing these technologies so that they might reach out and touch another country's satellite.
Space perverts.
You would expect such a thing from the Trump administration.
Just grab them by the satellite. Don't applaud that.
OK, we need to move on to our final fact of the show, and that is Anna Czerzinski.
My fact this week is that there is a 4-metre wide hole in Sir David Attenborough's bottom.
It's been lovely having a series. Thank you for watching.
This is the news this week that the RRS Sir David Attenborough, which is the ship that is better known as Boaty McBoatface to a lot of people, it has a 4-metre wide hole in the bottom of it, and so it's going to be a research ship that's going to go to the poles, so it's going to go to the Arctic and the Antarctic and do research there over the next few years. And in order to do that, they've built it a wet porch, which is a hole that runs right through the middle.
That sounds disgusting.
Yeah, I didn't want to say David Attenborough has a wet porch. I don't know why. So this is the hole that runs from the deck right to the bottom of the ship, and it means that you can conduct experiments more easily. So if you need to drop equipment into the water, it's a much steadier environment in which to do it rather than dropping it over the sides, because the water's going to be calmer. And also because this is going to be ploughing through ice a lot. Like, I think it's going to be able to cut through 1 metre thick ice. It's going to mean that you can drop equipment in, because all around the boat will be ice. So yeah, it's got this huge hole in the bottom of the boat.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
So obviously, it's the big news this week that David Attenborough went down to see the ship being fitted with its keel, and they do an interesting thing with a coin, I believe, where they press a coin into the bottom of it.
So the coin that they put in was a newly minted coin from the British Antarctic Territory. So these are coins that are minted by a company to be used in the Antarctic. I'm not really sure what people can buy there because they're not legal tender in the UK either, and they only can be used there. And it's part, not only that, it's part of the Antarctic, which we claim, but no one else in the world believes that we own.
Well, I think when they see this, they'll change their mind.
So we should say that Boaty McBoatface still does have a role to play, quite an important role. And David Attenborough was so sweet on the Today programme when he was talking about this. So Boaty McBoatface is now the sort of little submarine that they're going to allow to descend. But it's very independent, so it can go 6,000 metres down below sea level to explore the sea, and it will be able to remain at sea for many months at a time. And we've got a picture of the sign that was at the opening ceremony. So they're trying to make it be taken more seriously.
I take it seriously
now. That was the sign that they put up of Boaty McBoatface.
I was wondering, because they invited David Attenborough down there, I wonder if they invited the man who suggested Boaty McBoatface. And his name is James Hand, and I found him on Twitter. So I messaged him, and he was invited. Yeah, so that's really nice, but he said he was too busy.
Thinking up more brilliant jokes.
The thing is that I think he kind of regretted it quite instantly because so much flack came towards him. Even in his bio, he sort of suggests regret because his bio line on Twitter reads, "The reason we can't have nice things." Hashtag Bodie McBowface.
Can I tell just a really cool, random, tangential thing about the people who are building this boat?
Yeah.
So they're a company called Camel Laird. They're a really famous shipbuilding company. They are the people who invented the mechanism on the London Underground that doesn't crush you when you try to walk through the doors. So they had a contract to build London Underground trains in the 1920s, and they came up with what they called recycling doors, which if they touched anything, they'd reopen so it didn't crush you. And it was a complete disaster at first, so I was...
Fingers everywhere.
No, they longed for the injuries of the past because what was happening here, I read this in a book called London Underground Electric Train, and it turned out passengers quickly discovered its major weakness. They could use it to wait for latecomers, especially if the latecomer happened to be an attractive lady. A simple tap on the door edge would keep it open, securing the gratitude of the lady and affirming your status as a gentleman. And it caused massive delays.
So people would just, stand there in Holborn, just with their arm there, waiting for an attractive lady to come.
We're going to have to wrap up very soon. Does anyone have anything before we do?
Just one more thing about that vote. So RRS David Attenborough came fourth in that vote, right? But they went for it anyway. But that's not what it's called. It's called RRS Sir David Attenborough. And RRS Sir David Attenborough came 57th. OK. So boats, names that beat him or names that beat that name include RRS I like big boats and I cannot lie. RRS Boatback Mountain. And RRS Bippity Boppity Floatily Boatily.
I too have collected a few of these. Usain Boat. And they also had RRS Ice Ice Baby, RRS Not the Titanic, and RRS Clifford the Big Red Boat.
All right, I'm going to wrap us up now. That is it. That is all of our facts. Just time to share with you some of the stories we didn't have time to get to during this show. And we're going to start with you, James.
OK, my fact is about this billboard. It's been erected in Michigan, and it's a message for Donald Trump that says, "You can't read this, but you're scared of it."
Anna, what have you got?
So my fact from this week is that BBC Breakfast has apologised for showing a picture of an escaped gorilla instead of Nicola Sturgeon. And we've actually got a video of it here because it is worth watching for the few of you that haven't seen it.
What's coming up on the programme? We're going to be joined by Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon. We'll talk to her about plans for a second referendum on independence.
Finally, Andy, what do you got?
This is that the Vladimir Putin calendar 2017 has just been published, and it shows him respectively in a tree, in a wetsuit, with a kitten, and getting into a combine harvester.
From me, Andy, James and Anna, we'll be back again next week. We've been No Such Thing as the News. Goodbye.